Dennis, your team has led several billion-dollar mining successes in the mining industry to date. What was the catalyst for starting Austin Gold?
The catalyst, so this goes back to 2020. Of course, COVID was going on, and everything was shut down, and some of us realized how bored we were at that time. But more importantly, we had Joe Ovsenek and Ken McNaughton were leaving a previous company they had built, again, a multi-billion-dollar company. And so we all got together, the four of us actually got together and decided it's time. We felt good about the gold market. Let's put another company together from scratch, a gold exploration company. And that's how Austin Gold started back in 2020. And it's been a good experience, a very good experience so far. We're enjoying it.
The Austin Gold story is relatively new to the InvestorNews audience. Would you mind giving us an overview on the company, please?
Sure. So I mentioned we started the company back in 2020. Worked for a couple of years getting the projects together, a very experienced board together, and of course several projects. We did our initial public offering in May of 2022. We went straight to the New York, the NYSE American Stock Exchange. We're not traded anywhere in Canada, and we managed to catch the craze. That there was a SPAC craze and an IPO craze that was going on back then. We managed to catch that. Perfect timing. I think we were one of the last initial public offerings that caught that craze. Our IPO was done at $4 US. It opened at $6.50 and rocketed up to $29, believe it or not, on opening day within the first few days of trading. The net result of all that is we were able to raise gross proceeds of US $15 million, and we're still well funded. So we managed to get some good projects together, a good team, and now we're out building the company.
And of course, you have two projects. You have one in Nevada and you got one in Oregon. And your most really recent drilling results were on the Stockade Mountain project deal. How about you speak to your favorite highlights?
Sure. So we actually have two projects in Nevada right now and one in Oregon. The Stockade Mountain project is the one that we've most recently been drilling. And it's a very large, high-grade gold and silver project just north of Nevada, of course, southeast Oregon. We got some very good results. The model for the Stockade project is a classic textbook epithermal vein system. And what's really impressive about these systems, and this one in particular, is let me explain. I guess near the surface you get what's called a stockwork system. A stockwork, if you can imagine a shattered windshield, where you get all these little cracks, and that's where you get these veinlets, and the veinlets near the surface carry gold values. But the very typical model is that as you get deeper, these you get into what's called the feeder system that fed those veinlets, and typically that's much richer and much bigger. And that's what we're looking for at Stockade Mountain. It was previously drilled by three major gold companies, and they were looking for open pit. So they drilled very shallow holes. They did not look at all for the potential feeder system that's typically underneath these stockwork veinlet systems. So we drilled 3 holes. The results are very encouraging. We've got upwards of over 9 grams gold per ton in 2.5 to 4 feet widths. But again, this is still the stockwork. This is the veinlet systems, the supposedly thinner, less rich part of the gold system. So at Stockade, we're looking for that feeder system where we expect to be hopefully much richer and bigger than what we're seeing in the veinlets. So that's Stockade. In Nevada, I'll just mention one project in Nevada. It's the Lone Mountain project, and we're very excited about Lone Mountain. Lone Mountain is located in the Carlin district, if you will. We're 20 miles northeast of Carlin and about 15 miles south of the Jarrett Canyon. The Carlin District, over 100 million ounces have been mined so far in the Carlin District. And just north of us at Jarrett Canyon, over 9 million ounces have been mined. And these deposits were discovered in what's called, or through what's called a lower plate window. And the lower plate is exposure, logically enough as it sounds. You've got the upper plate sitting on top of the lower plate, and where the upper plate erodes away, you get exposure to the lower plate. And the lower plate carbonate window is where these large gold deposits are being discovered, the Carlin system, the Jarrett Canyon. And so we have one of these, a 13 square mile lower plate window at Lone Mountain. And it's been owned by one family for over 60 years. So arguably it's very underexplored. We're very excited to go out and explore this large lower plate window. Well, there's actually a past producing mine on this project at Lone Mountain. So we're really excited about this project. Again, not a lot of deep holes, an area where we're focused, there's not a lot of holes at all. So it has district scale potential. It's such a large property. We have over 800 claims there. So those are the two main projects I'll mention for now. We do have another project, but we don't probably have time to discuss all of them.
So speaking of that, Dennis, can you tell me why you selected the New York Stock Exchange as your, source for listing? Most exploration companies usually start on the TSX, for instance.
Sure. Actually, that's a very good point. We are a very rare company in that we are an exploration company listed on the NYSE American. There's very few of us. Most NYSE listed companies would be producing or development companies, and we're exploration. But we chose that because of past experience of all of our officers and directors. You've got a much larger audience. Well, just by population alone, you've got 10 times the audience in the US as you do in Canada. But we also believe that you can get a better trading, more trading, more volume. And if you look at our share price and our volume and so on, it's typically better than a new startup on the TSX Venture, for example. So that's why we headed there. We've got 3 of our directors and officers have been involved in building. Well, actually, I shouldn't say 3 of us. There's 7 of us directors. All of us have been involved in the building of $3 billion plus companies, and all 3 of those companies were listed on the NYSE American. So with the good experience we've had in the past, with the potential to build a significant mining exploration and mining company, that's why we decided to go to the NYSE American.
And of course, in building these billion-dollar corporations, which we did mention at the onset, for investors to take a look, we always tell them to check out the management's background. Can you tell me why you selected gold? And we'd love your opinion on the gold market in general right now.
Sure. So typically the gold market is 50% jewelry, 40% investment, and 10% industry. Right now, and for the last, you do have a lot of jewelry buying and so on, and that small amount of industrial, but the market for gold right now is being driven by investment. There's several factors, of course. There's geopolitical factors. There's the de-dollarization of the gold market. You've got inflation worries. You've got the potential for the U.S. Federal Reserve to start reducing interest rates. Even the potential for a recession. So all these factors combined are driving the gold market. But most recently, it seems that the gold market is being driven by the de-dollarization of gold. You have the geopolitical situation when Russia invaded Ukraine. You've got the Israeli-Hamas situation. That's one factor. But when Western decided to freeze the Russian assets when Russia invaded Ukraine, I think that woke up some of the China and other central banks around the world, Brazil and so on, decided maybe we should not hold so many reserves of our reserves in the U.S. currency, U.S. dollar. Maybe we should have bigger reserves in gold. And I think that right now, I believe China is one of the driving forces central banks, plus of course Chinese investors themselves are hoarding gold. So that's a big factor in what's driving gold. I'm a firm believer that with the money supply increasing dramatically, debts in the U.S. and around the world, central banks, economies, and so on, sooner or later, well, it is happening right now. You're seeing, of course, the how was it one newsletter writer put it? It's a race to the bottom between the various currencies and fiat currencies. So gold is money, and I'm a very firm believer that gold will perform and is going to continue to perform, certainly for the rest of this decade.
Well, obviously, I have to ask this question now. How in the world did you get such amazing assets? I mean, there's a lot of gold bugs out there, Dennis, that have been scouring the planet for amazing projects. How were you able to secure such excellent prospects and in the United States, of course?
Sure. So it's always networking. You know, we have, I've mentioned our board. We've got a fantastic team, 7 directors. All of them have been involved in the building of multi-billion-dollar companies. We've built 3 of them between us. But then we also have 2 economic geologists on our advisory board. And they're expert mine finders. They've discovered in their career so far over 1 billion ounces of silver and over 10 million ounces of gold. And several of their projects are actually in production as producing mines. And these are prospectors that have discovered these projects just by being out in the field looking around. So one of our projects came from them, and that's the Stockade Mountain project, actually. And then we have another project that has been owned by one family for over 60 years. And actually, that fellow is that family member is a director of Energy Fuels, which is another company I'm a director of. And I've mentioned it's been in their family for over 60 years. And through that relationship, we were able to acquire the Lone On project. So it's networking. It's people always make the difference.
Well, you heard it here first on Investor News. For more information, please go to the Austin Gold website. And as per Dennis Higgs' LinkedIn profile, do not contact him asking to buy bullion. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.